Intro. Homer's Odyssey is an old book that can show things like loyalty through separation and being tested in many ways. Even though it came out a long time ago, it still is a good book to read and look at like how it was written. Since it was not in English originally, that means there's like a million translations for the book throughout time to the English language. The version I got was translated by Richmond Lattimore. Whoa. It's in the true red, white, and blue American language, or as close as you can get to the modern English, in 1965. It says modern translation on the cover, but that could be disputed in some ways because, language changes like that. But first, the story should be known before talking about, the main points of it. 10 years after the Trojan War, Odysseus, who is the king of Ithaca, hasn't gotten home yet. And his wife is kind of being bribed by people offering her gifts and trying to marry her. Penelope, who is his wife, is like, I'll remarry once I finish weaving this shawl. But plot twist, she doesn't plan on finishing that anytime soon. Then Athena then tells Odysseus' son to go get news of his father. So, the two see Nestor and are informed about Agamemnon's death. So, Telemachus goes to see Menelaus and learns about Protus and how Odysseus is being held captive by the nymph Calypso. Zeus, the guy, then sends Hermes to help rescue Odysseus after Athena asks him to. As Odysseus leaves Calypso's island, he kind of is brought to the home of the Phaeacians. I probably butchered that, but you get the idea. The bard there sings about the Trojan War, which, gets a very sports-like Odysseus, very sad, and filled with every emotion ever. He's getting very emotional over this. He tells us stories of what happened during the war. Now, they were so close to Ithaca, but then a bag of magic wind is opened, and it pushes them to an island full of man-eating giants. Then, when Odysseus' crew encounters the goddess Circe, they get turned into pigs. Kind of like Spirited Away, not really. Hermes helped that not happen to Odysseus in a way, so he got kind of lucky. Then the crew goes back to being normal human beings, but then Odysseus goes to the place where people who are alive can speak to the dead. The prophet of Tiresias tells him that he will go home, but only after another journey is done. Another day, another journey. He also speaks to his mom and to his fellow friends of war, Agamemnon and Achilles, the people he was in war with, as allies. When passing the Sirens area on his journey, and music is heard, some of the sailors die because of the beautiful voice of the sirens, I guess. It's hard to tell if you've never heard a siren before. Some use the beeswax they have to plug their ears, but Odysseus ties himself to the ship's mast so that he doesn't have to deal with that. And so, what a perfect, reasonable thing to do. Reasonability at its finest. But then after going through a passage between a rock and a hard place, being known as a whirlpool, they land. They land on an island, eat some cow belonging to the sun god Helios, and so they get punished. Bang, there goes their last ship, and now we get to the present day, or close to it in the book, as that is how he met Calypso, and he's telling his story, because now they're on the island. He's taken back to Ithaca and hidden as anything but his true self, as Odysseus is in shelter to a kind stranger, Telemachus returns home. After dodging ambush attacks, of course, then Odysseus tells his son his true identity under his disguise, and they both go home. They meet up with Argos, their cute little pupper, their little pupper who is not a chonker, because he's neglected, basically. And so at least he's able to die peacefully now because he's seen Odysseus get back, and that's his owner. The suitors from before make fun of Odysseus in his own home, and so he and Telemachus prepare for like a violent revenge plan, basically. Odysseus sees Penelope before she announces that she's ready to remarry, but it will be to whoever can shoot Odysseus' bow the best. You know, just a normal thing. You'll never guess who would win that contest. So anyways, all the suitors are dead. They're all gone. They got murdered. Zip, they're dead. Odysseus is tested after he reveals his identity to his wife by having them move their bed. But the bed can't be moved, so, well, good for them. They have a stable house or whatever. The test was passed, but just as Odysseus tells his dad who he is, the suitors' families plot revenge, but Athena intervenes and says, no thank you, and the book ends. Close the book, and the last page. The story is finished. Bada bing, bada boom. Loyalty is like a trait that everyone likes when people have it, but also it has to be a two-way street, like in the book. This is seen when Penelope secretly tries not to remarry as she has hope for Odysseus, even though he is far away. He's all the way over there, across an ocean. Usually, this isn't the case for a lot of people. So, obviously the times were different back then compared to now. Because, people have trust. Odysseus also only kind of stays loyal to Penelope, to be honest, only a little bit throughout his little journey, since, he falls in love in a way with Circe on his journey. So, pretty weird on him for that, but, it's just you slip up, or something like that. You can make an excuse for that. And other than that, scandal, their scandalous activity, loyalty is kind of shown throughout the book, even through long distance, showing that it is possible to go on a journey and to have a motive like that. Odysseus' journey is made by the motive that is his wife. Because, you want to get back home to your wife. Because he has to get home for mainly the reason that he wants to stay with her and all that stuff. Guys, I love my wife. It's that mentality. Penelope isn't really on a journey, but she kind of has this power that is really I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe that you'll come back. And she just kind of knows that Odysseus is on this journey, which is why she does what she does, was trying to delay the process as much as possible, because, she doesn't want it to end, and believing is kind of magical when you look at it. At the end of the book was Penelope deciding to remarry. You could make the argument about how long she waited, and he wasn't there. Whoopsie, Odysseus wasn't there. But it just shows how, loyalty doesn't always hold out, was just an idea. The idea of someone being the only driving force of loyalty is possible when they're gone for, a year at most for most people. You kind of have to know when people come back. You need to have a schedule, you're going to come back on this day. So, you have that idea. It's just the idea of being there in spirit versus being there in person. Some people are fully fine with it, in spirit, but a lot of people need that in-person feeling, because human connection is kind of unique, and it usually happens in things like relationships, because people just need that. And considering the amount of time Penelope waited for Odysseus to come home and to come back to her, it kind of seems like she needed that in-person type of loyalty. The idea just faded for her over time, which makes sense. That's a long time that he's not even home. This is also what is challenged when Odysseus comes back to Penelope. The idea of someone versus the identity of someone. You have the idea of someone, but don't know the identity of them. That's very common in a lot of like romance movies where people just have this idea of who someone is versus who they actually are. Like, whoa, guys, you're this really magical person. In reality, like, they're homeless or something. I don't know. Odysseus is hidden as like a beggar to see if Penelope would still be loyal to him. Well, not because of this idea of true identity and not knowing who someone truly is, because he would be assassinated, but, it's also kind of like a test in that way. The idea of someone also extends to the idea you have left of them. So basically what you want to remember and not really all that you experienced with them and all that. So those memories can be good or bad, but whatever they are, no matter what they are, that's really all you have. And so you can only revel in that for so long. It makes it so that you can only have this perceived idea of what somebody is compared to what they actually are in reality, which creates this weird 1.5 person in your mind. Not really the person in spirit, but the person in body and the way you see them, how they are physically. But they're not like a whole separate person because you're imagining them for this. This is what deals with the idea of loyalty a lot, because you could always lie to yourself and say that it is someone else or make up an excuse. But let's be for realium here, guys. Let's be for realium. That's not how it works. That's not how that works. Reality isn't just nitpicking what you want to be, but that's a different conversation. It's about knowing who people are, and that's what the beggar thing shows. This is because all we know, Odysseus isn't a beggar. We all know that. He's a hero. He's the guy who went on the journey and maybe cheated on his wife a little bit, but he's loyal. He's not a beggar. We know that. That's a different man right there. Odysseus on his journey, let's just say he didn't really thug it out like Penelope did, and it kind of shows only at some points in the book. Let's just say he got a little distracted. This is probably the same idea of the idea, but it also is like, in this case, it's probably also just because Odysseus was in the scenario that put his loyalty to the test a lot of times, and he kind of failed. Overall, he doesn't do the greatest job with it, but he tried. He tried his best, considering his trials and his Odyssey and all that stuff. You can make a good amount of excuses for him if you really want to, but stuff just happens like that sometimes, and some people fail those tests. It's this little thing called temptation, where you have to overcome it and know what is for the right. But Odysseus didn't think about that when it came to Calypso and Circe. It's his one slip up, and that's usually, fine for some people. It depends on who you are, but he slipped up. That's all that matters. The Odyssey that Odysseus goes on is one that is full of very diverse things and characters, which are all unique looking back at it from at least 1,000 years into the future since it's been written. Europe as we know it now is very different from when it was in the book, but the landscape has still stayed the same really in terms of the shape and the countries and stuff. When reading some locations that aren't taught to us in American schools, or if they are, it's very limited, so these regions are really weird to see, or just have to be researched, since it has a unique area that is covered really in the islands are also unique. It's just you don't hear about them sometimes. But this is also because of Greek mythology and all the unique things in there that are different from all the other belief systems in the world. The creatures in the book that are encountered are unique, and also all make it feel like Odysseus is being tested in many ways throughout, his journey. This is seen with the things like the Cyclops people who are there to really test Odysseus' strength and his ability to stay loyal to his crew. Loyalty, it's back! His loyalty is also seen when he has to get his crewmates back from being turned into pigs and having to save them instead of leaving them there to die. But also, the sirens, in a way, can be seen as him overcoming his weaknesses by being lured in by their sound. It's an obstacle. Everyone faces obstacles, but it's an obstacle that affects everyone on the ship. But since we mainly follow Odysseus, it can be made for that sake that he was on that path to overcome his weaknesses. The end of the journey, as well as the real thing that closes everything together, was a nice little Greek flavored ribbon. The idea of how Odysseus gets everything back, but also has to prove that he is himself, is good because it's not like a cop-out of, hey guys, I'm back now and I will kill all of you. It's this idea that everything he worked for throughout the book and throughout his journey was actually for something, and not just for the filler or anything like that. It wasn't a filler episode of an Odyssey, that's for sure. The journey is able to be one that works, and that works well because of that fact that he can actually work towards something and earn it back. Even though Penelope is a human and not just a prize. Don't objectify women, guys. So the journey was worth it in the end for him, and it shows a happy ending. It shows all that happy ending stuff we all wanted to see. So the Odyssey was worth it. You get rewarded for doing good on the test or whatever. Bada bing, bada boom. And that's the idea of the end of it, at least. Overall, Homer's Odyssey is a good book that shows loyalty and all the traits relating to relationships and things when they are long distance and far away from each other. Just like that. It's a good book if you like old books or epics. Though, it depends on what version you get. That depends on if the language is more modern day interpretations. I would personally say I liked the book. The 76% of people on Google who said they liked it. I would give it an 8 out of 10 because it was a fun journey to go on, but some others were kind of better and more entertaining in my mind. You may have a different opinion. If you have different thoughts, you can comment them down below. But overall, that's about it. Please like and subscribe. Pretty please.